Hey guys, welcome back. We're back with our political correspondent Tim Moore.
He's at a rally. It looks like he's so handsome.
Where are you at, Tim?
I'm in Kentucky right now. I'm at the Stop the Vote rally. I'm just kind of, playing the field, getting to know what's going on. I get
Yeah,
some pretty good points over here.
there's been a lot of interesting animosity towards this election outcome.
So we're back. Like I said, we have Tim. He's our political correspondent. Post election, we're ready to talk about it. We had some thoughts beforehand. We're now, what is it, 2 weeks out at this point,
Feels like
roughly.
Just about.
Yeah, it feels like it's a long time, but 2 weeks out post election. Let's kind of recap our thoughts, go over everything. How do you think of our map?
We did pretty good. I mean, 49 out of 50 states. I think that's quite a success for it. And we got a guy on the inside in Tim, so he was scouring the country.
Tim did go as expected for you. I mean, we were all kind of in consensus with our map, but how are your thoughts?
The actual election went the way I expected it to go. What I didn't expect was absolutely everything else about the election.
Wow.
Yeah, so the only state we got wrong was North Carolina. It was close, 1.5%, 1.5 points, something like that. But to start off, Democrats won the presidency, but it was actually by and large an awful night for them. I think as a party going forward, they were projected to get between 12 and 20 seats to expand the majority in the House. As of now, they lost 6. They had 12 seats to get 4 for a majority in the Senate. They got 3, and it hinges now on
One
2
state.
Senate seats in Georgia, which
Yeah.
again, Georgia is the new Florida, it appears. So that not a position that they wanted to be in after this election. That's for sure.
No, it was a
Yeah, I mean,
slaughter.
as
Go
a
ahead.
president, Donald Trump lost. As a Republican, he won
Yes, without a
because
doubt.
he got so many people that wouldn't have gone out and voted to go out and vote for House seats, Senate seats, and really do a number on the projected Democrat wins. Like they really went out in droves.
100% great voter turnout on both sides. You can call that a win, sir. The Republican Party, and a big loss despite the presidency for the Democratic Party, and to be so dependent on one state that we didn't anticipate. I think we all had higher expectations for the Democratic turnout, Senate wise. It's looking good. One result of this is that I've learned is polls mean nothing anymore. You can't really look into polls. I mean, we established last episode polls are just polls and that can change. We weren't unaware of that, but I think I wasn't anticipating how off they are and how unreliable they are now more than ever.
I think in a sense Donald Trump broke polling, and I don't know if there's just people who
He
it
broke
could,
many things.
well, it could be a few things of these people. I mean, polling sites. Let's say they even use 1,000 people, and that's how they get their sample. Well, if you're CNN and you actually come up to a Trump supporter, you don't know they're a Trump supporter. You're just asking a general opinion. What are the odds that they're actually going to be honest with you? I mean, they've been taught for the last 4 years to despise the media. Everything the media says is fake and not true. So I think that's one facet of probably they're not being truthful, or they really just, or they don't say. And more Biden people spoke up, or more Democrats were speaking up. And it's hard to believe considering all the flags and signage for Trump and how loud they are with their support in general to not give an honest answer in polling. But I think it probably has to do with if the media is asking them a question, they're not going to give an honest answer.
Yeah, it's like it's it's like a closet thing in a sense. Many supporters, it's not the first thing you want to throw out there. Some people, they're fine with it, but
Yeah, especially towards the latter half of this year, it kind of became like a really popular thing to just be like, oh, Orange Man bad. And everybody was like, yeah, I mean, obviously we all, hate him. So none of us are voting for us. And if you're somebody who supports him, which is obviously nearly half of the United States, you're probably not going to see a bunch of people getting on the news and doing all this stuff and saying they hate him and they can't wait for him to be out of office and he's like a tyrant, and be like, oh, I actually like him. That's just not, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree on that. And I think the biggest first issue pending election, post-election, has been this issue of voter fraud.
yeah. So that's our transition now. Is we want to talk about voter fraud because there's so many things going on here. It's crazy that half the nation thinks this is not. Let's examine why it's crazy that half the nation thinks this is a stolen election.
I wouldn't say half. I think there are plenty of people who voted for Trump that know that he lost.
Well, hey, they said that yesterday, again, poll, we don't know how accurate it is, but I guess, and this was Fox News poll, 70% of Republicans think the election was rigged or hacked or there was fraud.
That's astounding. That
is such a large number.
Yeah.
That's not just the 40% of Trump's base anymore. That's a lot more than half of the whole Republican Party.
You'd be hard pressed to get 70% of any political party to agree on anything. That's just insane.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And now they're all combined behind this idea of voter fraud, which when you have that wide amount of people that believe that this President-elect Joe Biden got there via fraud, you've already undermined any foundation he can have, because it's like, well, he didn't win that legit. There's many reasons this is dangerous, but and what is it founded off of? I mean, where is there's been no evidence of voter fraud to this point. And I think, in fact, I mean, you have Lindsey Graham investigating in Georgia if it's possible for any ballots to be thrown out. The voter fraud instances have been from Republican Party so far. And I'm all for doing our due diligence in determining if there is any evidence. But when the evidence is there, we have to move on and recognize the loss. What were you going to say, Tim?
I was saying that this issue could have been resolved 4 days after the election tops. They could have. I mean, look at all the court cases. They've taken it to court in several different states and several different jurisdictions. And basically unanimously, every single thing that they brought to court has been thrown out. Like, this is ridiculous. You can't complain about this when it is nothing to do with what you're talking about. You cannot say, oh, well, our guys were made to stand 6 feet away from the people who were counting votes, therefore it's voter fraud, when everyone was made to 6 feet away from everybody because of a global pandemic. And then you get such a disconnect between what is happening in courtrooms with Trump's legal team and what he is saying.
Yeah. Because
his legal team is making small, tiny little allegations, moving very slowly, like a lawyer would, trying to gain ground. And he is on Twitter saying, this is a 100% fact. We all know this has been faked. I'm suing everybody. And then when you look what's happening on paper and what's being said, it's just two totally different things.
Well, what about
not even?
Which is how Trump has operated, real quick. That's how Trump has operated from ages ago, is to say whatever he wants and have a very different reality. Go ahead, Tyler.
What would, like the people who, what was it, in Arizona, they were outside the Department of Elections chanting, count the vote. But in Pennsylvania, the Trump supporters were out there saying, stop the vote or stop the steal.
Stop the count. Stop the count.
When we knew going into this, they said, everyone warned us for 2 weeks. Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, they are not allowed to count the mail-in ballots until after the election, after the polls close. We knew it was going to be a while. These other
And I
places
agree.
like Florida, they counted the day before. They counted as is. Where we are, you sent your ballot in. If you sent it in by mail, you could keep an eye on it. 3 days later, it would say counted, which it was done at that point. There was no counting to be done on election day.
And I think it's stupid that they didn't count until
Right.
election day. But stupid and fraudulent are two very different things.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just because efficient doesn't mean that they were cheating.
And mind you, in Pennsylvania, it's a Republican-led legislator. The Democratic governor did try to we wanted them to pass a bill in the state legislature so that they can count and change that law, and they denied it twice. So just so that fact is out there, they did try to rectify it.
And it's a big time optics problem because many people are not as involved in politics or aware of how it works. And you look at a state like Ohio, which election night was leaning blue initially, which everyone's like, well, what the hell's going on here? And then as the election day votes were counted, it clearly went red. But I mean, that's just evidence of like, okay, you know how the system works, not really fraud. It's just, that's how it is. Then you look at Pennsylvania, like we said, and of course it's going to lean red because that's the election day votes. And then the vote by mail ballots, which are primarily typically just statistically Democratic, you get that blue leaning over time. Oh yeah, 100%. Because Trump is saying, go vote, go in person. You know, you don't want to be part of that fraud. And then, you know, Democratic leaders are encouraging vote by mail.
I think I saw too on our online articles. They were saying how people, literally Trump supporters, did not go vote in these swing states because they were worried about COVID. But he told them, don't vote by mail because it's rigged. And they literally said they didn't vote because of that. So he really shot himself in the foot on multiple fronts. And I've had conversations with people. This could have been his moment. If he would have even shown 10% that he cared about the pandemic, he would have won by 9:30 p.m. on election night. He would have got 30% of Democrat support if he would have just taken this as his moment, which he didn't even have to do anything. Let the scientists do it. He can sit back and take all the credit. He didn't even have to do anything. It could have been done. We could have been done. He would have won the presidency, and that would have been it. Everyone rides the president's coattails when they do something big. It happened with Bush during the war. He got all that sympathy, backing, support. It happens all the time. This could have been his thing. And he lost by 20,000 votes in Wisconsin. They're getting destroyed right now with COVID. You don't think that maybe those 20,000 people had someone lost by COVID or were affected by COVID somehow, that they were completely just turned off by this guy? Who knows? Georgia was an 11,000 vote margin. There's 15,000 people dead there. They could have all been Trump supporters that didn't listen or follow any restrictions or guidelines, and they died before the election. So he really lost this. It wasn't that anyone else won. He lost this.
Mm-hmm.
All he had to do was listen to someone's advice on something. One thing. He could have picked one thing and ran with it. And people would have been like, oh, okay, so he is competent. You know, let's stick with him. But he just didn't.
He chose to go down this path of insanity, which is that the new normal? Insanity?
It's on brand.
Are we okay as a country that people literally want the person who lost the vote to still be in power? That is apparently seemingly the new normal, and I think we need to go away from that. I think we need to go back to that not being okay, and it is okay in the eyes of so many.
I think this showed how, like, we're a democracy, we have free elections, and we have these institutions, but I to be blunt, they really don't mean shit. When someone like Donald Trump can come in and totally destroy the system, put cronies wherever, in whatever position he wants, and there's no consequence because you have the whole backing of a party that has the majority, but frankly doesn't represent the majority of the people in the country. So,
imagine someone competent. Imagine someone competent.
No, 100%. When you listen to people and they talk about tyranny and how dangerous Trump could be, if he had half a brain, and was smart at all and listened to any
doesn't
people
even-
around him, it could be a lot worse.
He doesn't even need to be smart. He just has to listen to, like, if he had like a group of people that he listened to guiding him, he'd be president right now for sure. That would be 100% the case. And who knows what would happen in another 4 years?
Mm-hmm. What's wild to me is the retribution's not the answer, but Biden's saying he doesn't want any investigation or prosecution of Trump going forward. And that to me is wild because it just means, okay, he did all this crazy stuff, gets away with it, and that's the end of it. That's okay. We're okay with that.
Yeah, let's act like it didn't happen.
Right. As opposed to people who abuse the system illegally should get punished. But again, I guess that's politics, is you're okay to do whatever you want.
I mean, unfortunately, we're not in positions of power, so we have our opinion on it, and we'll see how it goes. I mean, at this point, it's going to be Biden's winning by almost 7 million votes, and at this point, it's like still thought of, could there be a scenario where he's not even in the White House come January, because these people are crazy. His press secretary is on Fox News saying we're going to recount all the legal votes, and I'm 100% certain that Donald Trump will remain the president. I'm like, what planet are you on?
He'll be at his inauguration.
Yeah, it is absolutely crazy. I know Josh wanted to put a thing here about was he the cybersecurity director?
Oh yeah, the cybersecurity. Go ahead, Tim.
That was I'm glad you're doing it now, because that was when I was going to get a chance to talk. I was just about to say, like, how do you sign in a cybersecurity program while you're in office that you're signing off on, have them investigate something after you purposefully, created that program, and then have them find something that you don't like and then fire the guy and call that fair?
Yeah, exactly. And Chris Krebs, the cybersecurity guy with Trump, made a statement saying there was no evidence of fraud. Trump goes ahead and fires him, and basically over this tweet. And this tweet, and this kind of segue to my next topic. This tweet says there is dead people voting, not true. Poll watchers not allowed in polling locations, not true. Glitches in the voting machines, which changed votes from Trump to Biden, which, by the way, he claimed with Romney and Obama as well, not true. Late voting, not true. As long as your vote was cast prior to or on November 3rd, there's no November 4th counting. So many claims, and the only thing Twitter, and I get it, freedom of speech, but the only thing Twitter does is this claim about election fraud is disputed. That's all that gets attached to that statement, which has how many lies? 8. If we go back and count.
How many followers see that?
And
I think presidents have like 60 million followers or something on Twitter.
That's my other thing. This is actively dangerous. This is just undermining everything about this country. And we talked in the past about social media and people stuck in these bubbles. This is a perfect example.
No,
and
talk about Parler now.
I was about to talk about Parler. Parler, to me, is scary because that's just taking that far right enthusiasm, if you want to call it that, vitriol. It's probably a better term for it. Yeah, and just putting a breeding ground for it. Fox News already does that. Let's talk about that. Trump hates Fox News now because they say President-elect Biden, but
Fox News jumped ship because they realize they have to save their own skin. They can't be supporting a guy who's not going to be president in a month.
They're still doing. They're still putting a platform out for Trump's president.
They're still having these people on there, which is like, why? I mean, granted, one day I was watching and she came on, she started talking nonsense in a briefing or whatever, and he did pull away. He was like, I can't in good conscience show you this because it's completely false. And unless they're going to give us facts that there was fraud, I can't continue with this airing this. So
It's mixed because they're not ready to commit to.
yeah, they got one toe in the water.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Some of them are.
Yeah.
Tucker and Hannity, they'll put whoever they want on there.
But that's the same thing.
But-
So the daytime people on Fox are not hacks. When you get to 8, 9, 10 o'clock, you have the lineup of Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham. They're just cultist following icon hacks. And mind you, Sean Hannity's tweet the other day was, Twitter's blocking my free speech, so come join me on Parler. And then, so he's bringing all those people over there, and I've seen clips on Parler where there are literally people who are saying, if we want to solve this problem, everyone, you go pick off and kill 2 liberals, and if we all kill 2 liberals, we'll be fine. What is this? And it's uncensored.
To me, that I don't want to say means nothing. You can find that on the left side as well. There's no congregation that I know of of it as there is like Parler that's taking off as it is. But the fact that that Sean Hannity's shifting to this platform, and I'm sure that platform's, I saw they're banning liberals, so it's just trying to keep a very tight knit breeding ground. And I love it. I love that they're like, oh, Twitter, is banning what I say, and Facebook is banning
people who don't agree with them politically.
But Steve Bannon's not banned by Facebook, despite calling for the beheading of Dr. Fauci. Really? Is there really a liberal bias when liberal news organizations are covering that story and they're getting demonetized and banned, but Steve Bannon, who actually said it, is not? Like, where really is this liberal bias?
I find the liberal bias is things that have to do with fact. Whenever someone says a fact that is not parroted on one of these right-wing site or right-wing media outlets, then it becomes a liberal conspiracy or a liberal media hoax, whatever you want to call it. And not everything. And I get there are biases. Again, like we talked about before, you can't have even a judge. There is no unbiased judge. That's BS.
There's no unbiased person.
Yeah, everybody has their own thoughts and opinions that, yes, is being biased. But for the most part, I mean, I feel like anything that they disagree with, whether it's fact or not, it just, that's a liberal teaching. Colleges are liberal. Why? Because they let people like express themselves. I get this is a separate topic. I get the free speech issue on college campuses. I get that, and the coddling, but it's like they're being educated, and then when you get educated, you formulate opinions and you have a different side of the world, and then you just become a lib, from a college educated lib, and it's just creating a more divisive culture.
That was what I was trending towards with bringing up Twitter and Parler and all these things. Is you can see the progression from the Tea Party and even the very, very early inklings of that into, I think Trump basically found the vein and just polluted the whole system, and it's only getting worse. We have what, 70? We have so many people disputing a full democratic election where the facts are there, the facts are physically there, and they still want to dispute it. Some people think the Trumpism is going to die without Trump. No,
that's the Republican Party now.
It's only going to fester. I hope I'm wrong, but it's only going to fester, especially when you have Fox News is still, yes, there's moments of clarity, but it's crazy. You have OAN. You're going to have Trump's network soon, I'm sure.
Could you imagine him on a podcast? Could you imagine just an hour of Trump?
You should get him on Nurse Bros.
He would just be spewing the most absurd QAnon things that came out that day. His whole show would just be QAnon theories.
Yeah. And I know Biden talks about unity. Can we have unity when you have QAnon that has taken so much speed? I don't know how you can.
So you
I
can
mean,
you can segue, or you go ahead, Tim.
sorry. The worst thing you can do to a group of people who think like that and are making radical ideas and just going without fact, just I believe this is true, so it's true. So let's find some evidence that proves that what I'm saying is true. It's kind of like what I say, and a lot of them, like evangelical Christians, make up a huge, huge, huge amount of Trump voters, like a huge amount of Trump voters, and they're playing the game a lot like they play the game with themselves with religion, where it's all about the echo chamber. If you can keep the only information coming in to be corroborative of what you believe, then you're just going to rile yourself up so much to where you know for a fact whatever you think is right is true, to the point where you can look at somebody and say the earth is 4,000 years old and then laugh at them when they tell you you're wrong. Or you can look at someone and say Biden had 300 million, well, not 300 million, but you know
Cheese
what I mean?
pizzas.
Like Biden had 300,000 Biden had 300,000 dead people vote and nobody did anything about it, and laugh at them when they tell you you're wrong.
I
And
think
the echo chamber is the worst thing they could have.
Which is what Parler creates. Go ahead, Tyler. But
Yeah, no,
that's what these.
Yeah, the divisive, to your point, good segue into the next thing. So the divisive culture, and one thing I want to talk about was what's next. We know really what's next for the Republican Party. I mean, at this point, I feel like it's just the party of Trump, and until something shows me otherwise, I think that's where they're at. What's next for the Democrats? And
Well,
I say this because if you look at Florida, Biden flipped Jacksonville, St. Pete, that whole county on the West Coast, Pinellas County, Tampa. He flipped all these. They voted for Trump in 2016. He flipped counties that haven't gone blue since Obama's first election. But Hillary won Miami by 30 points. Biden only won it by 7. There's a serious disinformation campaign that was targeted to the Cuban Americans in Miami. And that's why he lost Florida. And that's why the 2 Democrats lost seats down there. And because they scream, the right screams this socialism word. And it's become such a bad, you could be the most centrist, West Virginia Democrat, but you have a D next to your name, you are a socialist. And there has to be a combative education campaign. No one wants anarchy and just running rampant down the streets. No one wants like Venezuela, people fighting for food, and they use these places as props. Like, first of all, Cuba's communist, it's not even socialist. Second of all, Venezuela is not in the situation they are because of socialism and socialist policies. They're in that way because they had a corrupted government run by a dictator. That's why. Who just kept spending money. That's the difference. They don't have a government set like us. So there needs to be, they never point out models of France, Canada, Denmark, Sweden, Germany, almost every European industrialized nation. They don't point to those. They point to Cuba, which isn't even socialist, and Venezuela, which socialism wasn't an issue there. Socialism wasn't the main issue there of why they fell flat. That's a leadership issue.
I think that's multifaceted because did Biden flip those counties, or did Trump, with his ineptitude, flip those counties? And I think that's kind of the problem, is who are our candidates? Who are on the Democratic side? Who do we have other than the AOC Bernie that really gets people riled up, but not the moderates, not everyone. So who do we have as a party that can convey that effectively when you're also combating a huge disinformation campaign from the right? And we've talked just now about how facts don't matter.
Clearly, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer can't. And that's the thing. Most of the moderates in the Democratic Party are old, 87-year-old people who are from a different century. And now and they need to go. They need to understand they're not going to bring in a fresh coalition of people running on the same old things. And that's a perfect example here, which I wanted to talk about. So these ballot measures, we've had some of the most progressive things ever become law, and not in blue states, like red states, like South Dakota. So Florida voted for Trump by 4. That was the largest margin in a presidential race in, I think, since Clinton. That is quite a while. Okay, so it's been very tight since then. Florida also, by 62%, passed the $15 minimum wage. That's a very progressive
so glad you
idea.
brought that up.
And South Dakota, Montana, New Jersey, Arizona. Those are South Dakota, Montana are very red states. Arizona, we flipped. Jersey's a blue state. All passed recreational marijuana. Mississippi passed marijuana with a prescription. Oregon decriminalized drugs, replaced it with $100 fine. And the rehab to send people to drug rehab is financed by their marijuana revenue. Arizona passed a ballot measure increasing taxes on people with incomes greater than $250,000 to fund their schools. Colorado passed 12 weeks of paid family leave statewide. These are extremely
Sounds like progressive ideas.
These are extremely progressive ideas, some of which are winning ideas in very, very, very red states.
Mm-hmm.
But South Dakota, Montana, I mean, South Dakota, especially, there are no Democrats at all. So it's the messaging. Like, it's like that no one really wants to defund the police. It's such a shitty message. People need to understand, first of all, they can't take sound bites from people in Oregon protesting who most of them are white too, and they're hipsters that have never been affected by police either. These are just idiot Twitter mob people, but Twitter, again, is not real life. So
That make us look bad.
Exactly. We don't want to defund the police. We want to retrain, probably take out some of the, demilitarize the police. Yes, not defund. And also, when we have excess funds, why does a cop get military grade weapons and all that for free, but a teacher's got to buy her own stuff for a classroom? It's just the money needs to be spread out in a more fair, balanced way for the community to function better.
Oh.
But I digress.
Sure.
And
police officers. Oh,
no, go for it, Tim. You're good.
Sorry, I'm a little bit of a delay. I've got satellite internet. So the police officers, they'll be happier too when the only thing they're doing is their jobs.
Yeah.
They don't want to do the job of a social worker. They don't want to settle that kind of issue.
For 30
They want to be a police officer because they're a police officer. If you move the funds around in a way to where you can have programs that handle things that police officers aren't supposed to be doing in the first place, and the only reason they are handling those situations is because there's no other alternative. It's just call a cop and send them to this place, and then we'll figure it out later. If you get people doing what they're actually trained to do in every scenario, it would be better for everyone involved.
Yeah,
It's just
100%.
Like, it's not saying let's abolish the police, the system of the police.
That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. Yeah, abolish the police. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah.
I think we digress
Nobody
a little bit, but
believes that.
yeah, that's the problem, is that's been painted on the Democratic Party. And we need to we need candidates that are going to push away these tags. And I think what seems to be embedded politically in the Democratic Party is to not rock the boat and just try and keep things as they are. If there's things that are out of whack, get them back to baseline. Not that the baseline's
good.
good.
Do you guys think, like, going forward, because I don't care who you are, if you're a Democrat, you're getting called a socialist now. So do you think they kind of embrace that and teach people what it actually means? Or you could just say,
No.
we don't want socialism, we want like conscious capitalism, because that's really what people want like corporations to pay their fair share and not what I sent you the other day. McDonald's and Walmart have the most employees on welfare of any other company in America, and Amazon, Bezos is worth $200 billion. He pays zero in taxes. So that's like conscious capitalism.
You can't embrace it because the layman's not going to really understand it. I respectfully that people don't know anything about politics. I think the majority of people don't know anything about politics. And then you paint Democrats as socialist and they run with it. I don't think that's going to fly in the layman's eyes. I think it's just
It'll make it worse for
it's
sure.
it's been associated with Cuba for whatever reason, and Cuba's a scary nation. I mean, no, I don't think. I think Democrats have to have a real. As I said, this was a hemorrhaging loss for the Democratic Party.
They didn't pick up one
election.
state legislator with redistricting in 2020. So
I think we have to move away from the "don't rock the boat" stance as a party that we've adopted for whatever reason, and whatever it is,
Especially since the other party flipped the boat upside down.
yeah, whatever it is, we have to kind of come out swinging instead of just normalization. You know, it's the candidates like AOC and Bernie are these very progressive, kind of explosive personalities that attract the young people. Yes, and that's good. That's fine. But the Democratic Party is not just young people.
But I will say, in a little bit of disagreement on the Bernie end, is, I mean, when he ran in 2016, this time was obviously much different, a lot of other different scenarios. But when he ran in 2016, I mean, he won a lot of these states in the Midwest, Michigan too, Wisconsin, like states that want change. And it wasn't just young people, because there's no chance in a primary young people could put one Democrat over ahead to win. So, and I mean, he won Michigan by a lot. He won Wisconsin by a lot. He won Minnesota. He won North and South Dakota. He won Montana. I mean, West Virginia. These states do want change, and like I said, I think what's effective with him is he does dumb down the messaging.
He had the magic, but was he the Democratic Party's candidate? Like, really? No, that's the problem. That Clinton did her time and was a Democratic, and
it was my turn to be president.
It's the same thing with Biden. He's a moderate. He's at the end of the day, whatever he writes on his website, whatever progressive, which remains to be seen, we'll give him some time. But whatever progressive things, at the end of the day, he's a moderate candidate. At the end of the day, well, Hillary, maybe a little bit more progressive, still the Democratic Party. Yeah, exactly. That's a separate topic. But at the end of the day, they had the support. They did their time. That's the problem with the Democratic Party.
Yeah,
any change, any radical change just gets shut down for whatever reason. And I like Bernie. I like AOC. I'm not putting them down, but we need the party to rally behind candidates like that. We need someone with Trump's kind of magic.
If they keep losing, I mean, they're going to have to figure something out. And, you know,
because, like, who do they have in the tank?
Yeah, who's next? Harris?
Biden.
Good luck with that.
Exactly. Like, it's really, politically speaking, they have nobody.
Right.
They have nobody to fall back on.
We're drawing dead.
Piss poor.
We're drawing dead, and I think it's going to be. I foresee difficult times in 2024, especially depending on how Georgia goes. That does remain to be seen. Especially if Biden just has no support, no majority, and he's just kind of stops the bleeding by Trump. What's the Democratic Party going to say? I mean, we had 4 years of normal. Now what?
So it everything does on Biden's ability to get anything done does hinge on these two guys right here in Georgia. So, and for people who don't know, Georgia, if you don't get 50% of the vote, they go to a runoff in January, and then whoever wins. Silly system. Hey, states' rights. That's how they do it. But if the Democrats really want to show that they're serious about winning these seats, they will really work their asses off until January, because these seats are just going to give you 50. And we already know there's a lot of strife within the Democratic Party. So just that's one thing Democrats do not do well that the Republican Party does very well. When there's something they want passed, they all fall in line. They will vote on a party line on everything. Democrats, not so much.
Right.
So having these seats doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's a better chance to get some things done, but it remains to be seen.
I have a lot of things I'm just waiting and seeing how it's going to go. But I have concerns. I have hope. So we'll see.
Do you guys think they're gonna win? What do you think?
We'll see.
I'm
I
holding
never
out.
thought I'd be saying that Georgia was blue in the primary. So
I'm holding out
actual
hope.
election.
Cautious optimism. I do think that if one wins, they're both gonna win.
Yes.
So if one race is finished before the other, then it's a good indication of how the night's gonna go. So
I think these next 4 years, back on topic, I think the next 4 years, the Democratic Party has to produce someone and that we can rally behind.
They can't go back to being boring.
Right.
Yeah,
Like this just can't be a boring 4 years of, oh yeah, the president said this today. Okay, everybody go back to your normal day routine, because then in 4 years there will be a Republican president.
I would look at it from their standpoint, like this is your last chance. Like people went way off the other end of the spectrum. They came back to you barely in these certain states that flip back. But like this is it. If you don't deliver, I mean, good luck going forward. That's for president, Senate, House. I really think they need to do some soul searching the next 4 years, because it could be a
show what they're made
bloodbath.
of. They're done.
Yeah.
On the topic of the Democratic Party, did Bernie saying he was a democratic socialist help or hurt? It's hard to attribute just
As
one
a
thing.
whole, I don't think so, considering everyone's labeled as so. They've said Bill Clinton was a socialist. Bill Clinton in 1992 was basically a moderate Republican. I mean, they've been saying it for years. So it's not anything new.
It's just a scary buzzword.
Yeah. Now it's just it's more affected because they're actually using their heads now, and they're targeting certain populations who the word is even worse for, like, Cuban Americans in South Florida.
I don't think it hurt. I don't think it hurt nor helped. So
Yeah,
like you said, I don't think embracing, just back to an earlier question, I don't think embracing it.
Yeah, no, I hear you guys. Are we optimistic about Biden presidency? I mean, his speech was good. It was inclusive, but like Josh said, I don't know how inclusive we can be. I'm again cautiously optimistic.
I'm just hopeful it's like the first dose of an antibiotic of a Biden presidency, and we can kind of start to clean up this festering wound that we have. But I've lost a lot of optimism over the years in regards to Go ahead,
Tim. Do you think how long before you think like Trump actually accepts defeat, or does he?
So, if you would have asked me that 3 weeks ago, I would have said that he would give it a couple days to complain, like 4 days. Wait for every single, like, even if they called it, even if they said, oh, Biden already has these electoral votes, he would have waited until, the entire country was done and there was a concise, like, this is it, the election's over. And then he would have said, okay, fine, I lost. Now, I think he's politely yet firmly escorted out of the White House the day of transition in January.
and I think he'll be contesting it forever.
For 4 years.
Yeah.
Until he runs again.
Yeah.
He's
going to be
possible.
calling himself president of the United States until 2024.
Yeah,
he's going to keep that on his Twitter.
No, I agree with that. I think he realizes he still has a following, and he's going to ride that because he did get 71 and counting million votes. So he does have a following. I think the Republican Party is his now. And really moving forward, like you guys said, which I think was great, Democrats have to really soul search and find who's going to lead down the road, because they can't keep running 80-year-olds because I mean, that's not the party anymore, and it's not a winning solution. So
It's not. I have something to say about that whole situation with the Democrats.
yeah.
too. People want what the Democrats are putting out. It's the branding that's getting stuffed up. Because, like we were talking before, these incredibly red states that were never even close to going to Biden are putting through some of the most progressive programs that they've put through since the civil rights movement. I mean, they are absolutely going to town on progressive policies. And it is because they're voting with, their head. They're thinking to themselves, oh, helping people, that's a good thing. And like, I think I said this on our last episode. Sorry, your last episode. I don't mean to jump in.
You're fine.
I said this on your last episode. If on the ballot they denotated which political party liked which option on say the minimum wage and things like that, it wouldn't have passed.
It's very
I think if
true.
they would have said, hey, Democrats like this option, Republicans like this option, then you would have seen it been more of like a 1-to-1 ratio. Like if red state, then no progressive vote. If blue state, then progressive vote. But because people were voting with, their brain instead of which political party they were a member of, even though they were voting for Donald Trump, they were also voting progressive on policy. Because at the end of the day, people want to help other people and they want the lives of other people to be better. So if the Democratic Party can be more clear as to why that is important and how they want that to be their jumping off point, they could gain a lot of following right now while they have the office of the presidency. But instead, they're very bad at getting their message across.
I agree. That's perfect spot to end. I mean,
and the pressure's mounting. I mean, we're progressing, and this is me being crazy liberal, but we're progressing to a world where universal basic income, where these very progressive democratic policies are going to be necessary. It's not going to be, a luxury. It's going to be human necessity. And I guarantee it's going to happen. So pressure's mounting. We have to change the optics of it, because otherwise we're going to be scrambling years down the road when half the country's unemployed because automation took over. Look, you're exactly right. We have to change the perception as a party and start implementing and presenting better. Otherwise, we're going to have a lot of problems as a country.
And that's a problem I have with human nature as a whole. I feel like we're very reactive instead of proactive as like a group, historically speaking, all throughout history.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't fix a problem until it is a problem. Like the example I always use when I'm explaining it to someone is, you can have 300 concerned parents complain to the city once a week saying that we need the speed bump around this corner because people are flying around the corner with their car, and they're not going to do shit until that kid gets run over. Yeah, now we're the kid that's getting run over.
Right.
And the planet's getting run over. Like, no, you're 100%. You're 100% right about that. So, I mean,
we talked about Bernie kind of dumbing things down. That's what's going to happen. It's a lot easier to be like, well, weed, we get money. If you guys can smoke weed and the state will get money. It's perfect. You can dumb that down.
The issue, before we wrap up, the issue with the weed thing is, I use it as an example, but I feel like that's not a liberal issue anymore. I think Democrats missed the boat on that completely. If they were on board with that in 2010, like the right has their guns, weed could have been the left's single issue voting block. But now most Republicans are all for marijuana, and these red states are passing it. So you're losing that. Like, that's no longer just a liberal idea. And and they, again, because like Tim said, they're not proactive. They're not thinking 5 elections ahead. They're thinking, how are we going to scrape by November 3rd, 2020? And then I think there's an air of cockiness, and this is where the elitism comes in. Oh, Trump's awful. He killed, 250,000 people are dead under his watch. Pandemic, the economy's in the shitter. We got this. Clearly, for a bit you didn't. So, I mean, Biden won decisively by the popular vote. We get that, but still, for what they were selling compared to what we know the Democratic Party is selling, God, they fell way short. So, well, we shall see, gentlemen. But thank you again, Tim.
Thank you, Tim.
And it's
Absolutely.
not, you don't have satellite internet. You're in Kentucky, man. So
Yeah, it's the news truck.
that's why.
That's what. Well, I mean, you know what it is? I have satellite on the
It's on the
camper.
truck.
I'm out here.
Yeah.
I've been out here for 2 weeks campaigning, so I got satellite on the camper. I'm right outside the
That's
camper.
2G. You got 2Gs out there, so. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe to the Nurse Bros podcast on YouTube. Help the show grow and keep spreading the word about us. If you guys get your podcast through Spotify, Apple, Google, or any other podcast media, we're on there. Just search the Nurse Bros.
And you can also check out our Facebook page at facebook.com/the Nurse Bros. Keep our updates, new content there. So stay tuned.
We're almost at 100 subscribers, guys. So help us get there. We're almost there. So
Tim's got to subscribe.
Well, thank you, gentlemen.
I'm working on it. I'm not sure I like it yet.
Oh my God! Hey, he came on twice. He likes it.
Don't worry, guys. We got some fun content coming up. We got some things in the works as usual.
Yeah, we had our post-election break, so we're back and raring to go. But thanks again for tuning in, and thank you guys. Thank you, Tim. We'll see you soon.
Bye, Tim. Bye.
Bye, guys.